In the first part of this lesson, we did sine and cosine in the unit circle. In this part, we're just going to look at the tangent function in the unit circle. After this lesson, you should be able to complete all of the 7.3 homework problems. So if you were stuck on any, this lesson might be able to clear up any trouble you were having. We're going to start with a proof, and this is not something that you need to write in your notebook. It's just something that I want you to see and be okay with. So if we take sine of theta in a triangle, sine is the opposite. What we're gonna do is we're gonna show what we get when we do sine of theta divided by cosine of theta. So we're trying to figure out what that's equal to. Well, sine of theta is going to be the opposite leg divided by the hypotenuse. That's supposed to be a fraction. I just didn't have, maybe I'll write it better because it's supposed to be a fraction. And then we're going to divide that by cosine. Cosine is the adjacent leg divided by the hypotenuse. And the logic for this step is SOHCAHTOA, right? It's the definition of sine and cosine in a right triangle. And then we're going to try to simplify this expression. So we're going to rewrite it so that we're dividing two fractions here. This is the sine fraction divided by the cosine fraction. I'm going to rewrite that so that it looks like I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. So it's the opposite leg. I'm just going to abbreviate that as opposite divided by the hypotenuse. I'm going to abbreviate that as hype for hypotenuse. And then I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. So that would be the hypotenuse divided by the adjacent. And the logic for what we just did there was we did division is multiplying by the reciprocal. All right, so then what I notice is that I have a hypotenuse in the denominator and a hypotenuse in the numerator. So those can divide and make 1, and so I wind up with opposite over adjacent. And that's the reason for that is simplifying. And I'm simplifying, I'm just saying the hypotenuse divided by the hypotenuse is equal to 1. So I don't really need to write that. And then we know what the opposite divided by the adjacent is. The opposite divided by the adjacent is the tangent of the angle. So this relationship is that when you want to figure out tangent, all you have to do is divide sine divided by cosine. So this is the relationship. Tangent is equal to sine of theta divided by cosine of theta. And this is how we're going to use tangent in the unit circle. Sine and cosine are the y and the x coordinates. Tangent, we just divide those coordinates to figure out what the tangent of the angle is. And this reason here is SOHCAHTOA again. It's the TOA part of SOHCAHTOA. All right, so in this example, we're going to use the unit circle to evaluate tangent of 3 pi over 4. All right, so 3 pi over 4 would be right here. And my reference triangle would be drop down to the x-axis to get my reference triangle. So my reference triangle is going to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle, which means the two sides are going to be the same. The hypotenuse is 1, and this is the one where the sides are the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. So for this point on the unit circle, since we're in the quadrant where the x-coordinates are negative, this point would be negative root 2 over 2, and then the y-coordinate is positive because it's up from the x-axis. So, so tangent is going to be sine of 3 pi over 4 divided by cosine of 3 pi over 4. Sine of 3 pi over 4 would be root 2 over 2. That's positive. Oops. And cosine of 3 pi over 4 is going to be negative root 2 over 2. And I'm dividing something by itself, so that's going to be negative 1. So that means tangent of 3 pi over 4 is negative 1. Right, so this one, we're going to use that same idea, that tangent is sine over cosine, and this time we're doing tangent of 3 pi. So 3 pi means we're going to go all the way around the unit circle once. That would be 2 pi, and then we're going to go halfway around again. So we're here. Okay. So then the ordered pair when we're over there on the unit circle is negative 1 comma 0. So tangent of 3 pi would be sine of 3 pi, which would be the y-coordinate, divided by cosine of 3 pi, which would be the x-coordinate. So it's going to be 0 over negative 1, which means tangent of 3 pi is 0. All right, try these two. These are both negative angles, which means they're going in the other direction. And come back after you have given them a try. So pause, and then come back when you're ready. And the first one would be the point 0 comma 1. And so tangent is sine over cosine, but that puts a 0 in the denominator. So that means that tangent is undefined. There are places where tangent doesn't exist, and those places are going to be when you're at the top and bottom of the unit circle, because those are the places where cosine is equal to 0. So tangent is not defined at 90 degrees, or at negative 90 degrees, or at 270 degrees, or at pi over 2, because all of those places would involve dividing by 0 for tangent. Tangent of negative 5 pi over 6 would be this point over here. That's a 30, 60, 90 triangle with the 30-degree angle as at the origin. And so when we do a lot of simplifying, both of the ordered pair are negative because they're in this third quadrant there. But that means that the tangent is going to be positive because a negative divided by a negative would be positive. And then I multiplied by the reciprocal, and I divided the 2's, and then I rationalized the denominator. So I got square root of 3 over 3 for that one. All right, the last kind of problem we're going to see is an application type problem. This time we are walking a path. So there are a bunch of people who are walking this 4-mile radius from the camp. So the camp is at the origin. Just in case you're wondering, here's the camp right here. And I'm going to walk 4 miles on a path that is 30 degrees east of south. And I'm going 4 miles. And I want to know what my final position is relative to camp. So if I do my reference triangle here, this time, this is the only time because we're not in the unit circle, this time our radius is going to be 4. This is not the unit circle. The radius is 4. And then this is still a 30, 60, 90 triangle, which means the short side is half. So the short side is going to be half of 4. And the long side is square root of 3 times that number. So from camp, we are 2 miles east of camp. And we are 2 square root of 3 miles south of camp. Because this ordered pair, if this were a giant grid, is 2, which is positive, so east, and then negative 2 root 3, so south. All right. This is a lot of new material, so please don't be afraid to set up an appointment if you need to have a personal tutorial on anything. And please try the homework so you know what does and does not make sense. All right, thank you so much. Bye.